No, no. You just wanted to come on for the appearance, man. Dang, that's a shame. But yeah, no. So anyway, we're really excited. We got a lot of stuff that we want to talk about tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I, we're going back. We're digging deep. This is a Denson. Did you warn them about Um,
About what?
oh, we're live on YouTube now, huh?
Yeah, we're live on YouTube
We're
now.
live. What's going on, YouTube?
Uh-huh. We are
it's,
live.
it's been a minute, man.
We got it all.
Um, yeah, yeah. So we got some interesting stuff. We've had some heated reactions to some of these topics that we've talked about before. um, but this is gonna be a good one, man. So it's
Mm-hmm.
relationship based. Um, as Denson explained it to me, we're going to talk about what is the man's role in
Mm-hmm.
in dating. The how'd you phrase it, man?
uh, are men uh, a factor,
Responsible.
or are men? Yeah, are men responsible for the dating culture that we have currently?
Yeah, yeah. So, um, we're gonna dive into that one heavy, man. That's gonna be like I
Montreal
feel like
came
that's
up with
gonna
that
go.
one. Yeah, that was a good one.
I like that one a lot, to be honest. We're gonna go all sorts of different ways with this. I already know. And then, well, let's see. Being that you guys are on the Players Take podcast, right? We felt it was necessary to be good hosts, as you are the host of that show yourself, to talk about some video game news. Now, I am not too privy to it, but I understand there's some politics involved, and I'm very intrigued. I'm very intrigued.
It'll be a good topic. Don't you worry.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. So we got a whole bunch of things that we want to talk about. Destiny, you want to say anything before we start, man?
I just say, I want to make sure that everybody has a good time. I think we're going to have a really, really great show, and I think it's going to be fun. We got our good friends from the Players Take podcast here. Best guests, I feel like, that we've had. So, I always love having you guys on here. So, yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun and great. All of it.
So I feel like we should explain or have Justin explain his screen right now before we get started.
Okay,
Before we
so
start
yeah,
recording.
the guys told me, they're doing a live stream now, which this is the first time we've been on since you guys started that. I don't have a camera, unfortunately. So I was just joining the stream yard thing here, and it asked me if I wanted to personalize my icon, or my avatar. So I picked a picture that was in my pictures folder. I forgot about this, but this is my fantasy football team icon in my dynasty football league, and it's called Kittles and Hits off of the the dog food brand Kittles and Bits.
Oh my God. Wait.
But the reason why is it's George Kittle in the picture
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
He's a tight end. He's probably the best tight end in the NFL for the 49ers, and he's
Yeah.
one of my favorite players, and he's on my team. So I always like to model my team name after some of my players, and I
like
picked
that.
him. I think it was my wife who made the Kittles and Hits joke, and I was like, you know what, that's a good fantasy football team name. So my friend who's in the league with me, he's very talented with Microsoft Paint, and he edited a Kittles and Bits photo and put George Kittle in there, put all the dog pieces on there on him, and then he changed Bits, the B in Bits to an H. So, and then I know it looks pretty official, doesn't it?
It does.
I know. I'm low key mad that it was Microsoft Paint. I'm like, that looks really freaking good.
Dude, I watched him do it. Like he shared his screen with me the whole time he was doing it, and I'm literally in awe. Like, bro, what? This dude's like a mechanical engineer, by the way. Like super smart. He has like a 6-year degree in engineering, and he's making bank or whatever. And this dude's like an absolute genius in Microsoft Paint. I'm like, bro, like, is there anything you can't do, man? Like, geez,
Right.
man. So, but yeah, he made the icon for me, and I will use it everywhere I can because it is excellent. It's just
I dig
pure
it.
wonder. So
That's a solid explanation. Also, we kind of look like a Zoom meeting of college dropouts.
well, I like that me not having a camera fits in with that theme perfectly.
I know.
Yeah,
So
man,
yeah.
this is great.
Legit. like I don't know how bright this is gonna show up on other people's stuff. I got dirty laundry over here in the back corner, right there. Everybody's got their own vibe going. Hell yeah.
Exactly.
Montreal is an empty apartment. You know.
Yeah.
It's not empty.
Mm.
I got my little robot friend over here. Where is he
Okay.
at? Oh
You got
my
a
god! I
Roomba?
can't. Yeah,
You got a little,
there he
you
is, right
go.
there. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
your Roomba? Is that a Roomba, or is that
Yeah,
like
it's a
or is
Roomba.
that a knockoff Roomba?
It's a great value Roomba.
Okay.
Hey, if it works, it works, right?
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and I'm gonna start the recording here.
Mm-hmm.
We can start the introductions again
Mm-hmm.
and make the magic happen. You know, the last time we did something like this, live stream interview and everything, it all died and we had to start over halfway through.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
wow.
it exploded. It was not great, but
All right. Knock
Yeah.
on wood, everybody.
we'll be all right.
Yeah, but there was different circumstances on that night, so
Exactly.
we're gonna make this one pan out. So, all right, let's see. Let's do our intro real quick,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll say, you know, we got some guests on, blah blah blah. Intro, yeah, meow. We'll come into it. All right, let's do it. Okay, 3, 2, 1. What's going on, everybody? I'm John.
And I'm Dennison.
And we got some special guests this week. It's Justin and Montrell from the Players Take podcast. Let's go ahead and get into it. Boom. That's right. We're in it
Oh,
now.
man.
We in this thing.
Smooth.
Heck yeah. All right, cool. All right, we'll just go ahead and jump right in because this is the moment we all been waiting for.
Mhm.
All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, yeah. So it's a very special episode this week, and yeah, like I was saying on the live stream, because of course we are live streaming on our Facebook page right now. I think you guys have now set the record for the most recurring guest in the history of the Catch Up podcast. So congrats. Your trophy is in the mail. And it'll get there.
Is it printed out on a little card? You know, like
Well, I had to go to Kinko's to get printed and laminated, but by the Pony Express, it will arrive on your door in the next 2 to 3 months.
man, laminated. Okay.
So,
All right. I'm excited.
yeah. Yeah. So,
It's official.
that's right, man. So, anyway, you know, we like to catch up. We like to start off our discussions with catching up. And it's been a while since we've spoken to you guys on here. So, what's been going on? Justin, let's start with you first, man.
I mean, man, I'm just living life. You know, it's worrying about COVID again and not digging that. You know, but I'm deep in video games right now. So I mean, I host a video game podcast with Montreal. You already obviously mentioned it already, Players Take, but I'm deep in video games. My life has been stressful, and in games is how I relax. So I have rediscovered my love for MMORPGs, and it's been a wonderful couple months, and I'm just letting the ride happen, man. So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah,
But,
Dennison
uh,
was talking about that just the other day.
Mhm.
Actually, he was talking about how that is like his stress relief as well. And
Mhm.
I was wondering though, you know, 2 weeks ago, if I had asked you that, or maybe let's say 3 weeks ago, if I had asked you that, would you have been, would you have felt the same way? You know, getting stressed about COVID again, or I don't know.
It would have been less probably, but it was still peripherally in the mind. I think the Delta variant had already started to pop up a little bit around, but yeah, I mean, I think I probably speak for most of us here when I say the last 6 months feel like they've been crazy, and this is like personal life stuff, not necessarily related to COVID or anything like that, but just it's been kind of bonkers. And I don't want to get into details, but you know,
Yeah.
so stress in general has been high, but I did feel like more recently it was kind of coming down a little bit, and then COVID decided to peek its head back out, and is like, hey, I'm still here. So
Yeah, right. I mean, I think I don't know why I can't explain this, but I feel like I was just talking with a buddy about this the other day. It seems like everybody just has something crazy going on in their life right now, you know,
mhm.
and for the most part, it's a challenge, you know, of some sort. And I don't know why that is. It's like 2020 part two, but this time it's for real. You know, I'm not really sure. It's been interesting, but I can definitely relate to you on that. But and then Montreal, what's been going on with you, man?
Pretty much the same thing. Like I just been really stressed out. How major life change within the last 6 months. So I did some moving and stuff like that. Um, Job change as well, and
Yeah,
just been real stressful. So I've been trying to dig my head into video games, but I mainly just been watching some anime and stuff like that. I have been playing video games with Justin a lot, which helps a lot. We got a little small group that we play video games with, so uh, that's been helping me out a lot. But yeah, it's been a really. I'm not even worried about COVID, to be honest with you. I'm just everything else right now is just so blah that COVID's
Mm.
like this small on my list right now.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to blow out of proportion my worry about COVID. It's not that
sure.
large in my head right now, but it's there. It's just it showed
Yeah,
back up again. It's,
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I get that. I get that. Dennis and I have been talking about it pretty much. I mean, we try not to. We try not to talk about it every week on this podcast because, I mean, the
mhm.
goal is always when you do this kind of thing. You know, I don't watch other things to hear about politics or hear about COVID. You know, unless I actively seek that out, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, we try to give people a little bit of a reprieve from that as much as possible. It just, I don't know, it seems like, I guess I want to ask this too, do you guys feel like you're more stressed this year than you were last year? Because I know I do, and I know a couple other people I know do, and I can't quite put my finger on as to why.
I would say yes and no. Last year, especially during election season, was extremely stressful. Probably one of the most. Never been so stressed out about election in my life. To be
Yeah,
honest with you,
definitely. Definitely.
um, and I was going through a lot of stuff, other stuff in my life around that time as well. But this year, I'm not as stressed. I would say I'm just very uncertain, and I don't know if that adds to a different level of stress. Like there's tiers of stress or whatever, but I'm just very uncertain how December is going to look, and that's only 5 months, well, about 4 months, 4 or 5 months away. So it's like that's scary to me because I don't know what December is going to look like for the rest of America and the economy and things of that nature.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd say for me, like 2020 is still far and away much worse than this year. Like it's not even close. I wouldn't even put it in the same league. Like
Oh, yeah.
2020 is easily the worst year of my life. I think it's going to be very difficult for it to be topped. There was a lot of particular things that happened to me personally that cost me a lot of money that created stress for me. There was things that happened at my job where the team I was on got reduced by 66%. It was a really rough time in
Yeah.
that. And then of course, like Montreal said, the election, that was a stressful period of months as well. So I mean, this year has been stressful, but it's been more job related than anything. It's really the outside world outside of my job has actually been pretty good. It felt like for a while,
Yeah.
So
I get
Yeah,
that.
I put
Yeah.
it.
I feel like, oh, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I put it like this. I think 2020, uh, say 1,000 years from now, if they have to update the Bible, it'll be Revelations Part 2. Like that's how
Oh,
bad
right.
2020 was.
Yeah. No, I
yeah,
feel that,
right.
man. You and legit too. You like go through all that, and then you're at the point where it's like, oh, and angry locusts are like bigger than ever before. Like, what's happening, man? Is this the actual ending right here? Yeah, I get that. I feel like through 2020, I was just going through life like blinders on, blinders on, blinders on, and then toward the end of the year, it just got like I got punched from both sides, and those blinders collapsed, and then I was just deal. It was like all of the stress of the entire year came just upon me at the like last 3 months,
Mhm.
Um, it was not fun. So I definitely get what you guys are saying, but definitely on to brighter things. I feel like, um, and we already got some people jumping on the live stream right now. Christina says, "Hey," and
Hmm.
hashtag Bonnet Gang. Um, hashtag Bonnet Gang. So, real quick, let's do our plugs real quick. We are
Hmm.
actually live on Facebook and YouTube right now.
Hmm.
And in the
We
cases of
did it.
both, you can. We did it. We pulled it off. And you know what? We're really proud of that. So go ahead and
Hmm.
like both of those, subscribe to both of those, and you can kind of get involved in the conversation and direct the conversation in real time by leaving comments. We'll interact with you in real time as we record these audio episodes. We also have an Instagram under the Ketchup Podcast. In all cases, just search the Ketchup Podcast. You'll see our logo. And then check out our website and leave a rating and review. Those are the two best ways to support the show. Rating and review shows the algorithm that people are reacting to the show, and it will share it with more people, preferably
Hmm.
if they're positive reviews. So, 5 stars. Let's lean on that. And then check out our website. We have all of our episodes, all of our videos, and all of our merch and apparel in one place. You can support us financially there too. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into our first topic. Dennison, why don't you set this up, man?
Yeah, yeah, of course. So, our first topic is going to be kind of heavy. It's going to be about, I mean, I feel like we've all experienced dating culture in, different ways within, well, I don't know. For Justin, it might be a little bit different, but but I feel like all of us have experienced dating culture within like the last, I'll say even 5 years, right? In some form or fashion or whatever like that. And we've kind of all, I think we've all noticed that there's such a big change and difference than what it was once before. And so, kind of like the big thing about this is that, it does make you wonder, and Montreal actually brought this up as a great topic of um, are men responsible for the type of culture that we have currently? Because it's very hookup culture, right? It's very focused and based in quick flings, polyamorous relationships and stuff like that, which um, in some ways I you can kind of say that like and I don't want to generalize, right? But uh, I'll say male culture, uh, we tend to sex tends to be a very high of high
Importance.
importance,
Yeah.
and that can kind of fuel how we deal with relationships, or how at least we even focus on relationships. So that's kind of what we want to talk about, you know.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
so I feel like there's a lot to break down there. I mean, so when you say what role does the man play, do you say does are you coming at this from a standpoint of the man has a toxic masculinity approach that is
Uh,
playing a negative role?
all right, so it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Or I don't even
Yeah.
know if it's a double-edged sword. You can attack it from both ways. Um, just being out here dating for like the last couple of months, compared to like 3 years ago, because I got out of a relationship about 3 years ago, or not about 3 years ago, but whatever. I've been out for a while, and I just started dating again. Um,
Sure.
but the issue that I've come into now compared to like 3 years ago was that men are thirsty. If you not trying to use the popular slang, but that's
Right.
the really the term I can only use is the thirstiness that has personified in the dating apps and everything of that nature has made a lot of women on guard. So when you do meet quote unquote, I don't want to say nice guys because I don't consider myself a nice guy. I'm just a regular dude. But when you do meet somebody, just a regular person, they don't know how to approach it, and they approach it really. And I understand they approach it really guarded, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
navigate it. And honestly, it gets on my nerves to where I have to navigate it a certain way. And I'm a type of person that likes to chase somebody or anything of that nature. But that's what a lot of women are used to nowadays. And I feel like that's not their fault. That's because men are constantly in their inboxes. I had one girl tell me that a guy DM'd her every day. Hello, good morning. How are you? Good morning. She never
Yeah.
responded to it at all. And when you get that kind of attention, it's hard for, in my opinion, it's hard for like a woman to take any other kind of guy seriously. So when a guy that does come along who's just like, just like a normal person, is like, he's not. And or he is rather, but in her mind, she's like, he's not, or something's up with him or whatever. And it just breeds a culture of toxicity on both sides to where even the guys that are just like regular guys, we're just like, you know, these women want us to chase them, and then the girls are like, oh, these men are just so thirsty. So it breeds just a culture of like guardedness, and I don't know where to get it. I don't know how I can blame. I'm really trying, not blame, but I'm really trying to see the woman's perspective on this as far as how is it their fault when they're being approached by guys. So I'm just looking at it from the male perspective. I'm not even worried about. I can't say I'm not worried about the woman's perspective. I don't know the woman's perspective, but from the male
Sure.
perspective and the things that I see and know, I think that the thirstiness of men, combined with their lack of sexual discipline, has made it very toxic dating culture. Because even if you do right, there are guys who even get past, I call it the first guarded wall. Right, you get a number. You're on the
Yeah.
dating website, you're on a dating app, and you guys talk for a minute. And she's like, okay, he seems cool. Then you get her number, random dick pic comes up. And it's like at like 3 o'clock in the morning. And that's because that guy is just, at that time, he's insanely horny or whatever. And then the next, after he does what he does, he's like normal again. It's just like there's no sexual discipline for men nowadays. And I don't know, maybe that's just me. I wanted to get y'all's opinion on that, how y'all feel about the dating life right now, because I think John, you're still dating. I'm
Oh yeah.
assuming last. Okay,
Yeah.
so last time I talked to you, you were
Definitely.
still dating. So I know Dennis is
Yeah.
out the game and Justin's been out the game. But yeah, so uh, yeah, like that's just my opinion on it. And what are y'all's opinions on it?
Well,
Well, go
oh,
ahead, Denison. You want to start?
I mean, I just wanted to kind of interject something too, because actually,
Okay.
I feel like this also kind of goes into that, right? Because so it's about dating apps, right? Because I feel like that's the new big thing. That's how
Yeah,
we have started to more or less
that's
become a norm of,
that's the norm now. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, that's like the norm of how we want to interact with each other when it comes to dating. Like you can't approach people, or I should say, it's getting closer to a point where it's more frowned upon to approach someone, or you look like a creeper for approaching someone on the street or whatever like that, or in the grocery store or whatever, than if you were to approach them, or if you were to just go on a dating app. But what's really interesting that I found relatively recently is that there was a study done on, this is, of course, this is Tinder, right? But
yeah.
Tinder, they found that I think it was 87% of the users on there were male,
Okay.
which is a
Wow.
really, yeah, which is crazy, right? Because you
Yeah,
wouldn't
that's
think that.
bonkers.
But I think that also makes it to where um, I think it feeds into this like culture that we have currently. Is
Yeah.
that, that's the thing, right? If you have less girls who are competing for attention, right? Um, and guys, it turns into a competition because you know that they've got 50 dudes, like you were saying before, they've got 50 dudes in their DM saying like, hi, 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 hi. You know, it makes it to where the guy has to do so much.
Well, like that instance I said was just from one person. Like
Mhm.
he would probably be on Facebook, right? It would be one guy approaching one girl on Facebook every day. He would be in her DM saying hi, and she would not reply to him at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
yeah, I get that point too. And to your point, I get that as well. There are probably 50 guys in her DM
Well,
saying
yeah, that's
hi.
why she might not be replying. Is there's 49 other guys that are saying hello as well. It's like she's
Yeah.
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 picking and
Yeah.
choosing.
Yeah. She has
Definitely.
an overabundance of choice, right?
But
Hmm.
at one point,
Um,
as a man, do you say, hey, okay, she's not replying to me. I just move on. Like that's
Yeah,
just my point. I didn't mean to cut you off,
I
Dixon, but
mean,
that's just my point.
day
No, no, that's
two,
cool.
I would be done after a couple tries.
right. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the craziest thing to me. So like I think one of the biggest things, and actually I want to say this too to what you were saying, Dennison, is that even Bumble is about the same. I just looked it up. Bumble,
Hmm.
the ratio there is about the same. I would have thought that would have had a lot more women on there, but
Yeah, me
in
too.
fact does not. In fact does not. So one thing that I've said for years, and I have to remind myself of this sometimes when I'm out there looking, but I didn't realize how good I was with women until I watched other people do it. and that's not to say I'm, like freaking Mac Daddy over here, but
Yeah,
I
yeah, I understand.
I'm just right. I'm like not a creep, and there's so many, there's so many. It's incredible to watch. I don't I hesitate to tell this story on the live stream, but I dated a person one time that literally I'm not sure my cousin was aware I was dating her, but I think he was out with us one time. So he had to know I was at least talking to her.
Hmm.
And he has periodically asked her, hey, how are you? Even asked her to go to a concert one time. Just sliding into her DMs, never actually talking to her face to face over the course of like 2 years, at the very least 2 years. And I'm just like what you were saying, much. At what point do you call it good? At what point you call it a day, man? Like, pick yourself up and move on to something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, to your point, like I don't consider myself like a pimp or a player or whatever the heck, but I do talk to like women on dates and stuff like that, and they're like, wow, I'm so glad you're like, they're just amazed that I'm a normal human being. I'm like,
right,
yeah,
exactly.
like, and then I'll
I
pay
know.
for the tab, right? And then I would pay for the tab, regardless of the date or whatever. And I would go about my business. I pay for the whole date, and I'm like, all right, cool. I'm about to go home. I'm going to sleep. They're like, and
Yeah,
then some of them text me next day, like, so you didn't expect anything? No, I what? I'm asleep. I don't. What are you talking about? I'm playing the game.
I'm
Like,
sleep.
yeah, like I don't understand. And so like
Yeah,
I've been on dates where like, and I understand women like, well, I'm going Dutch right now because I don't want you to expect anything from this date. And it's like that's the standard now, or they have to pay for their own meals. Like I just
yeah,
did it because it was like a gentlemanly like thing. But but men are the first ones to say chivalry is dead. But then you pay for a meal and you expecting her to give it up at the end of the night. No, bro, that's
yes,
not chivalry. Like chivalry is not an automatic pass to
Yeah.
coochie. It's not.
Well,
I'm
dude,
sorry,
that's like the
bro.
nice.
no,
That's like the nice guy. That's like the nice guy mentality, though, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You. Okay, so all right. I know.
I know where you're going with this. I'm loving this. Let's
I'm out
go.
of the game. I've been out of the game for a while. Right. I'm married
Yeah.
5 years. I just passed my five-year anniversary earlier this month.
Woo! Drink
But
for you.
thank you. And I mean, we've been together for like 10 years, so I've been out for a long time. However, I do remember how I was back when I, wasn't taken. And I'll be honest, I'm a completely different person from how I was back then. And these tendencies you guys are talking about, I recognize some of them in the way I used to act around women.
Mhm.
Because the thing is, though, I think I don't want to paint with a broad brush here, but I would bet you a lot of these guys that act this way, they just they don't have a lot of experience, man. Like they
No,
just
they think
they
that
don't
that's
know
what they
how
have
they
to
don't
do.
know how to act because they look at women, they probably put women on a pedestal in some form or fashion in their head. And then when you realize, like, now at this point, I mean, I've been married, it's like they're not expecting anything like incredible. You don't have to like be like some fucking like uber super impressive athlete or something crazy. Like as long as you're normal and cool and you talk normal and reasonable and you're not a jerk, like you'll be fine. That's kind of how I am now. Like if I
Yeah,
suddenly found myself single, I would not approach it as desperately as I think is being described here, that you guys are describing this. That's what
Yeah.
it is. I think it's desperation. Like these guys probably think like, man, it's got to be this one, because
yeah,
who's gonna ever accept me? It's probably a lack of like self-worth.
Yes.
And because I used to have that mentality, you know, I did
Mhm.
not view my self-worth very highly. I did not have a lot of self-respect for myself. I didn't think I was worth much. For like, the idea that a woman would pay me any attention was like, oh my god, this is crazy, you know. But now it's more like, you know
Yeah.
what, like, I it, why did I feel that way? There was no reason to feel that way, you know.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
that's the thing. It could be a young man's mentality too, but even in older men, that's more than likely that they're probably they just lack experience. Like, they've just not
Yeah.
had a lot of success with women, you know.
hmm Well, I think I will say this. I do have, and we can get into this later in the conversation. I have a totally different perspective from the other side, from a woman, like not me not being a woman, but what I see. Spoiler alert, by the way. But but me being a guy who is on stage pretty frequently, right? And we can get into that later in this conversation. But
Mm,
I will say I think that there is something to be said too for these, kind of YouTube life coaches that really they get the clickbait with, don't be the nice guy, that kind of stuff. Be the bad guy, this and that. Now I will say in my experience that there is a level. I've talked with Denison about this a lot actually. I think there's a level
I think I know
of
where you're going with this.
it's like a mystery, so like maybe the vibe you give off is that bad guy, but then you pay for their dinner, or you open the car door for them, or you open the restaurant door for them, right? And you have that they're like, oh, I thought it was this. I've had that recently. I thought you were like, kind of a douchebag before I actually got to know you. You know what I'm saying? Um, and so like I feel like that kind of fuels this attraction, when you have that mystery that you give off. But when people don't know how to have that balance, and people also aren't true to themselves, you know what I mean? That's where it comes off. And I totally agree with you, Justin. I think that comes from insecurity,
mm-hmm.
and I mean, we all have our insecurities, but um, trying to power through it by like just driving a semi truck through your insecurities and being being a total jerk, that's not the way to solve that.
Yeah, and I did go through a lull period. I think, I mean, when I was working at Texas, I think Dennis, you remember that when I got like broken up by this girl. She was gorgeous, drop dead gorgeous, and I was like with her, and then she just flat out just dumped me, right? And I went through that period when I was just like, I felt worthless. But the thing about it was like, I didn't. I guess my first instinct wasn't to jump on dating apps and like instantly try to get another woman. I just had to like self reflect or whatever the case may
Yeah.
be.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of dudes don't do that, and I think, like Justin said, a lot of guys just don't realize their self worth. Like you're worth more than a dick pic, bro. Like you are, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Especially that.
Well,
Yeah.
also that, I mean, come on, just think about how that feels on the other side. Like, just literally think about how like receiving that would like, what is the presentation of that? Oh, okay, yeah, that's, all of a sudden I'm real excited. Like, no, bro, that's not gonna work, dude. Like, come
No,
on.
like literally, I who would look at that and be like, oh yeah, for sure. Like,
Oh, come over
it's
right
like,
now. Like, what? No, dude. Like, no one's doing that, man. This isn't a
yeah.
porno. Like, you know. Like,
But
Yeah.
that's another thing too. I think like porn is a major contributor into
mm,
way a lot
Yes.
of young men
mm-hmm.
think and
Mm-hmm.
That's a
act.
good call, man. That's a good
Mm-hmm.
call.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's another point I wanted to bring up. And this is not a shot at those people, but I think like OnlyFans and everything of that nature, like there are guys who will pay hundreds of dollars just for OnlyFans, and it's not. You would think like it's like only nude stuff, right? No, there are guys who would pay women just to text them every day, just to be
Yep.
like, "Hey, how you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
What are you
It's
doing?" and
crazy.
everything like that. And it's like I don't know, like, how can you combat that? Like, what does this woman need from an actual man when she has like hundreds of guys paying her just to talk to her? She don't want to talk
Well,
to you, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying?
man,
And it's not her fault. She's playing the game, and I'm not mad at her for
Yeah.
playing the game. I'm mad at
Mm-hmm.
the players of the game. Stop.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that
Yeah.
brings us. I mean, I don't. We're risking veering the conversation away from the
Yeah,
original
yeah,
topic here,
yeah,
but
yep, yep.
I do want to make one point about this, and it does relate to dating. Is that um like those kind of things like OnlyFans and even just Twitter in general and celebrity culture and influencer culture on YouTube and social media, like we as a society have begun to really like fetishize the idea of idolizing other people and
Yeah.
idolizing their lives and wanting to be them or be associated with them even in a completely irrelevant way where they just say hello to you, like you pay them $100 and they say hi to you, like they just send you a hi text, like that's it, like what
Mhm.
that is there's like parts of OnlyFans that I appreciate in some ways, but in others it does a lot of damage because you're like normalizing the idea that we're gonna pay women for things that shouldn't necessarily be paid for, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
and then I think another thing too is like as a part of dating culture and dating apps and everything of that nature in general, everyone wants to have quote unquote, and if you know what I mean by this, good for you. Everyone quote unquote wants to have the hoes. Like you just want to have as many women or men on you as much as you as it possibly can. And you want to seem like you just have this like this team, this roster of women on you and everything of
Mhm.
that nature. And
got some
even
pit
like
bull
for
action.
yeah, or even like for women themselves, like a lot of not a lot of women, but I don't know, but a lot of women seem like they have a roster of men, and you know what? A lot of them don't even portray themselves that way, and they do. They have a roster of men, like bro, like
Yep.
it.
Facts.
It's
Yeah.
just a weird culture to be dating in because everyone has this wall up because
Yeah.
no one wants to be the next text message string that's put up on Twitter. Like, look at what this guy texts me, or look at what this woman texts me, and it's just weird, man. It's just really
I
weird. I
know.
don't know what to
Mhm.
say.
We
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
we go ahead, Denison.
well, I guess the only other thing that I was going to add to that is what's also interesting is, and we already touched upon this a little bit earlier too, but it's like even if say these dating apps right have a high majority of men and a lower majority of women, I feel like the problem is too, and this I feel like this also bleeds into just when you are dating yourself, like you're actually dating someone else, is that you always have that thought, that constant thought, and media is getting thrown at you the same way of like there's always something better out there,
Yeah.
Mm.
instead of us wanting to. And I feel like that also feeds into the culture that we have created, right? Because as a male, right, if I'm in a perfectly fine relationship, right, but um but there's this one girl who decides that she just really wants to talk to me or whatever like that, and she goes out of
Yeah.
her way to communicate to me all the time, right? um, then at that point in time, I automatically get into that thought process of like, and plus I also have a whole bunch of friends who are not dating at all, right? They're single
Yeah.
and they're just going
Yeah.
through stuff, and they're saying like, hey man, you know, you shouldn't tolerate that she's treating you like that. She's doing you wrong. There's like 5 or 6 thousand girls over here that you can just go and get, like almost like you're going to the
1,000.
grocery store.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I mean, I feel like that kind of fully intrudes into the whole culture to where we as men, as you were talking about earlier, Montrell, are in some ways we're just weak. We've gotten weaker as
Yeah.
Well,
men. We have gotten weaker to where we don't have the willpower that we used to have. We don't have the um, the want or need. That's the other thing, to
mhm.
um, properly court someone. Um,
Yep.
and at the
Well,
same
that's true
time,
too. Yeah,
or yeah,
it's a
go
good
ahead.
point. We don't, well, like we just don't have the desire to do it. You're right.
Yeah.
I think there's a flip side of that too, that we sell ourselves. We sell our value because we think we have to do X to get the attention of this beautiful girl. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Rather than holding our value true. I didn't mean to cut you off though. Go ahead.
No worries, no worries. No, I think that is completely right. And then I also would just wanted to say, like, I think the other thing is like I think I heard this quote from someone that said, and I think this also kind of goes into some other stuff, but because I really do want to also I think one big thing is, you know, we're all American here, but I feel like this is also something that is interceding in all around the world,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
because and I use what is it? I think Japan is also in a similar situation where the men are weak. It sounds bad, but in some ways they are. Now, of course, I can't fully say about that, but just from studies and things that I've listened to, it sounds like something very similar. But essentially, you know, I feel like someone said that we're in a day and age that either a either you know both male and female can essentially fulfill all their needs all by themselves
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
because
Yeah.
we have created everything. Like the advancement of technology is amazing and great, but with that comes some other issues that I feel like we haven't
Yep.
fully
Well,
fixed.
yeah, we live in a world of instant gratification in many ways, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, where you can buy access to almost anything you want. You could literally go to the moon now if you want to, or go to space if you have enough money. Like,
Yeah.
which that wasn't true a few weeks ago. you know,
I know. Right. Isn't that
and
crazy?
those barriers continue to break down where money is now giving you access to all these things, right? I mean, we have to reference video games real quick, like the invasion of money into video games where you can buy advancement in many games using money. You can literally skip portions of games that people deem boring or whatever with games, and that kind of mentality is everywhere, and that's unfortunately I think seeps into this discussion where you go into a dating app and you're like, okay, you find somebody, you guys go on a date, and a lot of people go in there expecting it to, all of a sudden we're in love and we're just going out now. That's not how it works, man. Like,
No.
this is a
No.
this is a long-term thing. This takes time. Like a
Mhm.
relationship takes time to build properly, a long
Mhm.
time in many cases. Like, it can take
Yeah.
years for it to really blossom.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people just do not have the patience for that in this world because they don't
Well,
have to in many other ways.
no, I agree. And to your point, I mean, I was thinking about like Spotify or any of the TV streaming services we have. It's all you just consume it. It's in one end out the other, and it's the same thing. It's become that way with dating. Dennis and I were talking about that on here not even that long ago, where um, you as a guy are pretty much expendable, and so I think that if you have insecurity with dating, I think that if you have insecurity with yourself, that only feeds into that knowing, hey, there's like 500 other guys that are just like me that they could find, right? So with that, on the opposite end of the spectrum, I could pull up on my Instagram right now, I could pull up five girls off the top of my head that like just post, and I know we were trying to avoid this rep, but like
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a key factor here. They just post pictures of themselves, and it's just like I know actual IG models. Like I'm talking IG models that are sponsored and get paid for it, right? Instagram models.
Yeah.
But I know people that try to be Instagram models and have no business doing it, but they just try to do it. And I could pull them up right now, like I said. The point is with that is I think it's become this very self-centered culture, and not just with women. Men do this too, of course, but like it's become this self-centered culture that plays out on social media where it's all about, hey, check me out, check out what I'm doing, check out where I'm going, check out how I
Mm-hmm.
look,
Yeah.
and instead of it being about let's get to know someone else, there's absolute like self-love, self-worth, all of that. That's super important. But when you are so in love with yourself that you can't physically love anybody else, that to me, based off my experience, is the biggest one, or at least one of the biggest issues that we have in our dating culture right now. And the other thing I was going to say too, Devon and and Denison too, our good friend Devon, we've had so many talks about this kind of stuff over the years, and he made dating seem way worse than it was. I feel like when we were younger, like he was like, henny penny, the dating sky is falling. but we are now like I can safely say that at 27, I have seen it change, and it is worse than it was when I was younger, for sure. And I think it's because of that culture shift, and it's been a gradual thing over time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm 32, and it's it's there are women my age, um, who still I, are immature. I'll say that. Uh, and there are men my age. Like I don't date men, I'm obviously, but I'm just saying from some of the men I've talked to and everything of that nature who are still immature. They still think they're 25 or whatever. But I think that also that comes from the idea that a lot of people think 30 is the end of their life. I thought 30 was the end of my life, and I'm like, it's not.
Right. It's done.
Like
I know.
I
I
have
bet.
now I have enough money to do whatever I want to do. Where I was broke in my 20s, I can do a lot more stuff in my 30s and everything of that
Yeah.
nature. I'm more happy with myself and I'm more comfortable with myself. So I do think, like you guys were saying, like there are a lot of young men in their 20s who just don't know themselves. Um, but in my 30s now, when I see women, I don't instantly swipe on the woman who's the most attractive. Yes, I have to have some physical attraction to her. Yes, may go on a date with her. She may be a 10 out of 10, but if her personality is like a 0, she's a 5 out of 10 for me. I can't do it. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever. So as men, I think it's a certain maturity level that has to grow within yourself. And that comes with like sexual discipline, that comes with like mental discipline and everything of that nature. Like, just I think we need to practice teaching our sons discipline as far as like dating
Yeah.
goes. Because that I mean, I talked to my parents. I mean, well, my parents told me stuff that I thought was just common sense that every parent told their sons, like, hey, if a girl says no, instantly don't even pursue, don't do anything. Like, you guys can be mid hustle and tussle, it's getting hot and sweaty, clothes is off. If she says no, bro, get off her. That's it. But a lot of men
Yeah.
don't know that because they're just in the moment,
No
you
means
know?
yes. Yeah. That's what they
Yeah,
think is no means yes.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So and that also swings back into like dating culture because a lot of women get into those situations and things of that nature. Like there was this one question on YouTube, like a popular YouTuber was saying uh that also breeds it. I mean I guess I don't want to get deep into it, but it's like she said, "Hey, I went on the first date with this guy, and is it wrong if I ask him to come up to a room or to come into my house with me, but not expect sex or whatever like that?"
Right.
And of course, you shouldn't expect that, but it's just like a realism thing, right?
Mm.
Like, don't invite the person into your house. That's with anybody. Don't invite someone into your house on the first date if you're not totally comfortable with them. So if you're not totally comfortable with doing that,
Yeah.
don't invite them into their house because that builds up a certain expectation. I think even with women, it builds a certain expectation up.
I agree.
And
Mm-hmm.
um, I think we don't live in the age. I want to live in an age where we can say safely, like, hey, you can invite just a dude into your house and it just be totally cool. But we have to be in the age of realism where just to be safe, don't invite the guy into your house until you're totally comfortable with the guy or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
um, so I mean that's like a totally different conversation, but there are like certain instances of that just add stacks and stacks and stacks. And I think that's part 60%, 70% of the men's fault. Well, 80, 90% of the men's fault. You
Yeah.
know, why women have this guard up because they gotta think about stuff like that. Like, is this guy just a creep? Is he just trying to get inside my pants or blah 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 blah? So
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know
Well,
You're
that,
right. We created this.
yeah.
yeah. Well, and I think too, you have like kind of a expectation that's built up. One thing that you said that made me think of this, I used to hear this all the time when I was a kid. And I know a lot of people heard this growing up, but like there was more fish in the sea, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think when that phrase was coined, I mean, that was a word of encouragement because you don't have, dozens of women at your fingertips at any given moment, right? Whereas now it maybe conveys the wrong message because I literally, I could hit up somebody random tonight, that maybe it would work out, maybe it wouldn't, you know what I'm saying? But my point is showing that discipline not to do that. I think it builds self-respect and character for yourself.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then you don't end up in desperate situations or just bad situations. But okay, so there's one thing I wanted to say though, to flip
Hmm.
this to an extent. There's no
Okay.
question that guys are dogs. Okay, I know this. Like, a lot of guys are, and that's kind of what we've been talking about. But as somebody who is blessed with the opportunity to play live gigs just about every week, the main ones that draw a lot of a crowd in this nice venue we have here called the Brickyard, um, is with this cover band I play with. We play like alternative and rock covers from the past 20-25 years, like Blink and Foo Fighters and Fallout Boy and all sorts of stuff, Killers, whatever. So it's a lot of fun. And I love every aspect of it. Every time we have done one of those shows, which is pretty frequently, every time there's a girl that wants to go home with me. And in the case of the last gig, there was multiple, multiple. Like we had an intermission, and this chick just comes up to me. I didn't even see her, and she just like put this drink in front of my face, and she's like, "Do you want it?" And I was like, "What? What is happening right now?" And my point with this, not flex, quite the opposite. It is really, really confusing to me that someone that you've never met before can look at you just because, in my case, you're up on stage, you're singing, you're playing guitar, and be like, that's the guy that I want to, you know, bust out fireworks with, right? Or like, just whatever, like, or even crazy level, like spend the rest of my night or rest of my life with, right? Like, just based solely off of like one small part of me that you've seen on stage for 2 to 3 hours. And I think that that comes from this swiping culture and this consuming culture, because hey, if it doesn't work out, or even if it does, like I can say, and it's almost like a competition too, but I can say, I did whatever with that guy from that band, and it's like a trophy thing. Now, to be fair, like I'm assuming on that because I don't know what's going on
Hmm.
inside their heads. But regardless, I just find that really odd. And I know necessarily that in and of itself isn't new, but I think it's a thing that is almost like my version on the receiving end of what a lot of guys do to women, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I don't know. It really like, it's fun in the moment, but overall, it honestly really bothers me that people don't have more self respect than that, I guess,
I get what you're saying. I think the thing is, um, there are a lot of guys who would like to be in that situation, right? Like a
They
girl
think
just,
they think they would.
yeah, yeah. That's what I'm about to get to. They
No.
think they would like to be in that situation,
Right.
when in reality, you don't want to be in that. Like you don't want to be in that situation. There are a lot of guys who think that they, and that breeds this other culture where I've been in situations like that to where women just be like, they would just come at me raw, and I'm like, whoa, I don't want to have sex with you right now. I actually just
Yeah.
want to talk, and I would get called like a homophobic slur or something like that. Like, oh, you must be this. I'm like, just because I don't want to have sex with you right now, I'm this,
Dang.
and
Yeah.
because that expectation is for guys, like if I come onto a guy, he's instantly going to want it. He always wants it, and that's it. It is what it is. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, I have more self-respect for myself. I'm just not a random hookup, because I actually do not do well in hookup culture at all. So it's like I'm not that type of person.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
a lot, I think a lot of guys have bred this. not to turn it back on guys, but they bred this expectation into women to where women, when they are embedded in hookup culture and it's no knife at them, if that's what you like to do, that's what you like to do. So when they meet a guy who's just not into it, they're like, "What are you talking about? You don't want to sleep with me? I'm throwing myself at you right now. I'm literally throwing myself at you." And it's like, no, I don't want that. So it's a weird dichotomy that we have to kind of navigate. And I don't know the solution to it. All I can say is for men, like we just have to be more disciplined and stuff
Well,
like that.
maybe people just need to calm down. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
sex isn't like life or death. It's not the end all be all. It's not the ultimate form of living. You know, like there are other ways to enjoy your time. You know, like I
Yeah.
think that's the problem. Is that like weird? There's this weird like idolization of sex. Like it is the ultimate goal in any like relationship. You know, it's like
Right.
this and to me it's not like it's kind of a thing that's part of the experience, yeah, but it's not like what I strive towards or what I feel like other people should strive towards in a relationship. Like it's just, hookups are fine, they can happen, and sure,
Hmm.
go about your
Yeah.
day, but if you're actually trying to make something meaningful with somebody like that should be an important moment, absolutely, with somebody, but it shouldn't be like the only thing you think about, like
Yeah.
there, it's like if that is absorbing your thought process with somebody, you're in an unhealthy place with that person, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Like it
I
shouldn't
mean,
it that shouldn't be the only thing you think about.
Yeah,
no, I
that's
mean
true.
sex is cool, but have you ever beat Ganondorf on Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time?
I
Yeah,
was I
man.
was just gonna say that, like,
Have you
you
ever
know,
won a Fortress Siege in Ion? Like, come on,
yeah.
man. It's exhilarating.
I've been in plenty of situations where like a girl would come over or whatever, and I'm like, listen, I really didn't want you to come over, but I'm playing like League of Legends right now, and it's really getting tense. I'm on my I'm on my like last rank
I know
battle.
that. I know that is like that man. She doesn't know what she signed up for in that
Yeah,
situation.
or they'll
I guess I'll
ask
just
me.
sit here and watch.
Yeah, they'll call me or something, and I'll be like, and it like women would be really like,
Mhm.
some women would be really amazed or like shocked. And they're like, "Hey, I want to come over," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in the raid with Final Fantasy 14 party members. Can't do it tonight. It's gonna be like a 20-minute, 30-minute raid. Then we're gonna do some more raiding, and I don't want you. So you're rejecting me for a video game? Yes, I am. I'm sorry." And
Yeah, I know.
they don't. Yeah.
Yeah, other people don't deal well with rejection. I actually have one more thing I want to bring up
Okay.
about this. I had a situation just the other day where I was at this private party I got hired for. So it was kind of a wild situation. I brought my buddy out to play percussion with me, and it was a 21-year-old birthday party with a bunch of college girls, and I knew it was going to be wild, right? Um, and so not too old for this yet, but me and my buddy both end up pulling numbers that night. Like it was so dumb. But this girl that I ended up getting the number of, right? I'm telling my friend about it the next day. I was like, let me pull, because I was like telling him how she started acting weird right after she gave me her number. Like everything was cool up until then. I danced with her, I like taught her to dance. It was I can't dance, so I don't know where that came from, but like um and it was all good until I got her number. She started acting weird, and I looked her up on Facebook, and she has a man. Okay, so she probably like started to get some guilty conscience like right after she gave me her number. You know what I'm saying? Um, and the reason I bring this up is I think another thing, and this would be perpetuated by, it's almost like the chicken and the egg, who perpetuated it first. But I think everyone is so broken and hurt, right? And they choose to cling on to that. Dennis and I talked about this a long time ago. It's like a badge of honor holding on to that hurt, And um so they have walls up, and because they have those walls up, um or maybe even not, but you have trust issues. And so then when you do find something like that, right? Maybe some other person would have come in contact with that. Maybe some other person would have really liked that girl and then been like, man, I'm looking forward to talking with her. And then find out, what, she's in a relationship. And that just is like, you know what? Screw it. Like, I don't even care anymore. I think it is kind of this dismantling of dating culture because people just keep hurting each other, you know? Um, so that's really, I feel like my been my main thing for a while. I think like everyone is so hurt and then they never get over that hurt. Um, and then continue to be hurt or hurt other people in retaliation, you know, for something that maybe someone else had nothing to do with. But
Mhm.
um, I don't know. I guess the last question I have before we move on to the next topic, just how do you fix it? You know, discipline, like you were talking about. But
I don't
what?
know. On the women's side, I don't really know because I'm not a woman. But on the men's side, I think, to be honest with you, be yourself. Like, be true to who you are. If you are a super nerdy person like one of us, be that person. If you're a super musical person, be that person. Um, and just number one thing I think every guy should do, no matter what your mental level is, take one therapy session, bro. One. No matter what race you are, no matter what color you are, no matter your sexuality, anything, just take one therapy lesson or session and just start the journey to get to know yourself before you actually date. And just learn how to. I know there's two brains. There's one up here and there's one down there. You gotta learn how to keep that guy down there. You gotta learn how to keep that guy down there under control. There is such a thing as I believe it. There's such a thing as post nut clarity, where you would do some of the craziest stuff before
Oh,
that.
dude, you're 100% correct. Oh my gosh, dude, the amount of rationality that comes in that moment when you're like, man, what the hell just happened? You know, like,
You will
yeah,
look on your screen like, oh, what is this disgusting
you
crap
literally want
I'm
nothing
watching?
to do with sex anymore. You're like, dude, I need to get back to my computer. What the hell? Why am I doing? You know, like, man.
Yeah. So I think people need to, if you are, if before you send I think my greatest advice, someone told me this before. I was young too, and this guy was pretty young, but he told me, he's like, I was like, man, how do you combat cheating? How do you combat cheating or whatever? I didn't have an issue with cheating, but I had the urge sometime to cheat because my girl at the time was long distance. He was like, man,
Yeah.
this may be a little vulgar, but he's like, hey man, just go jack off, and I guarantee you wouldn't want to go out to go see that girl, the other girl you want to see again. And yeah, you can apply that to every facet of life. If you want to send that girl dick pic because you're that horny, bro, jack off first, and then you would
Oh my
decide like,
god.
You'll realize that how dumb of an idea that is.
yeah,
Yeah.
that I really was about to do this. Wow, I am stupid.
I mean,
Officially.
this is a great point. It's like a meditative state that you get into. You know, yeah. And I mean, it's true. You know,
So if you
it's
can't afford you can't afford therapy or anything like that. That's the cheapest way to do it, right
yeah,
there.
man.
Any,
Just
any
go nut real quick, and
Yes,
then
any decision you're about to make, even before you swipe right on some women, you be
yeah.
like, hold on real quick. Rub one out, and you come back and be like, you know what? I don't like her personality. I don't like her profile. Then you will have a
You become
clear.
like so cultured and intelligent, like. Well, dude, it's like you probably won't even want to look. You literally like turn Tinder off after you're done. Like you're like,
Yeah,
wait,
for
I don't
sure.
even want to
You
go outside. What was I
you
thinking?
are
You know,
awakened, man. You're
like,
awakened. You like the little awakened meme.
Yeah, it's enlightenment. You know,
Yeah, enlightenment meme.
I was on the fence of hitting that this content contains explicit material box, and I'm like, no, I'm definitely checking that box when I upload
well,
this.
so yeah, what would the acronym be? PNC, post nut clarity.
Yeah.
That's the bake too, ain't it? Yeah, it is a bake.
Oh my god. I can't even comment on that, bro.
This is what you invited on your show, guys. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry we got here. You know.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's just a
Oh,
lot of advice
man.
for all my men out there. Just before you make
Man,
any
yeah, no.
any decision, man, just be like, do I really want to do this? And then do your
That's some,
thing,
yeah,
and I guarantee you're
yeah.
going to be either too tired or you be like, nah, I don't want to.
Advice, man. Yeah, so it turns out there's a real story. And man, you don't even have to leave your home. It's pretty awesome. So, all right. Well, I hate to end that topic on that note, but while we jump over to the next, Justin, why don't you introduce this one, man?
Sure. Um, so the next topic is going to be, I think we can go ahead and kind of go over towards the player takes side. And actually, I want to have Justin introduce this one, to be honest, because
Okay.
I think he's got a really good setup for this one.
All right, so we're going into the big topic, right?
Mm.
Okay. All right. Okay, so you guys listening to the catch up here, we'll get a nice little window into what we talk about on the Players Take often. You know, we talk about video games, of course, but there's a lot around that industry that is worth talking about, company acquisitions and all sorts of stuff. So I don't want to specifically talk about a company acquisition, but it's related to the topic. So there's a company called Tencent. They are a Chinese holding company. They're a technology focused company, and they are extremely profitable. 200 and let's see, 220 billion in revenue last year, or something like that, which is absolutely insane. But so this company has, over the last, like, I'd say decade, has slowly, and in some cases very quickly, been gobbling up video game entities. And I'm going to go through a list real quick of some of their acquisitions, companies that they own. Riot Games, the makers of League of Legends, one of the biggest games on the planet. They have a 100% ownership stake in Riot Games. Funcom, who own the video game rights to Age of Conan, which is not a insignificant IP. Layu Games, Shark Mob, Supercell. They have an 84% ownership stake in Supercell. They're the makers of Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, some other mobile games that you may know. Grinding Gear Games. They make Path of Exile, which is a very successful ARPG series on PC. Epic Games. They have a 40% ownership stake in Epic Games. They are the makers of Fortnite, one of the biggest games on the planet. Pocket Gems, 38%. Fat Shark, 100%. They own a majority stake in Jaeger, Bohemia Interactive, Payload Studios, Voodoo. It goes on. Point being, Activision Blizzard, they have a 5% stake. Ubisoft, a 5% stake. And they're actually about to acquire a publisher called Sumo Digital. And Sumo Digital is not that big of a publisher. They're really, relative to some of the others in the video game space, they're not that significant. However, Tencent's about to pay $1.3 billion for them, which is a significant overpay, in my opinion, because their valuation up until a couple days before this announcement was literally like 40% of that total. It was probably like 700 million or something like that. So just Tencent wanting to acquire them, all of a sudden they're worth 1.3 billion. So all those names that I mentioned, right? They're coming in the video game space. This is a Chinese corporation, China, as Donald Trump once famously said. And this is of particular concern to Montreal and I, and should be should be of concern to other people as well. This is a topic that is not often talked about in video games. There are a few influencers who do key on it a lot. However, if you go look up the article about Sumo Digital, none of them even express the smallest amount of concern this is happening. It's just written like another fact-based, like it's just literally they're acquiring Sumo Digital, 1.3 billion, blah 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 blah. You know, it's just another day in the world, like nothing's going on. But the thing is that they own so much in the video game space at this point. It is starting to become, it's eventually, I think, going to be hard to discern what they don't own. That is a big corporation. I mean, they have ownership stakes in some of the biggest companies on the planet in video games, and this influence, they have tendrils within the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. Like, they have significant connections to that party. Like, literally 25% of their employee base are part of the party. Like, literally say they are part of the party, proudly proclaim this. So this company is not just some random Chinese corporation. This is a company that has significant influence and ties to the Chinese government. and they are
Yeah.
invading this space and just acquiring whatever they want. They're injecting money. They've injected money into Bungie recently, like hundreds of millions of dollars into Bungie. They didn't acquire Bungie, but they're making a significant investment into Bungie. And I don't think that's just free. There's something there along the lines, some kind of agreement there that they probably reached. But the reason I want to bring this up, though, is that we've been seeing Chinese influence on media happen for years now, where things come out, like a movie comes out and it gets censored in some way because it offends China or references something that offends China. And I have a few examples here. So this is a video game. Guilty Gear Strive is a fighting game, and it
Gotcha.
mentioned Uyghurs, Tibet, Taiwan in lore entries, and this was literally patched out without an announcement. Was just patched out of the game recently, earlier this month. Patched out secretly, not even mentioned. People caught it, of course, but it was complained about, I'm sure, through some channels, and was changed. Activision Blizzard, makers of Call of Duty, they had a trailer for Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War where they had footage from the Tiananmen Square riots from the 90s.
Yeah.
And they had to change the trailer. And they did. They significantly changed the trailer, in fact. And you cannot see the
Wow.
old trailer anymore on their channel. And then this one, I'm sure most people actually know this one. John Cena recently was promoting Fast and the Furious 9 and made the awful mistake of calling Taiwan a country and released this video apology where he speaks in Mandarin Chinese, apologizing to China about calling Taiwan a country. And then my last example is also from video games, where there were the Hong Kong protests happening a year and a half ago. And a competitive Hearthstone player, his name was Blitzchung. He won a tournament in Hearthstone, and he was interviewed after the tournament, and he said, free Hong Kong or something along those lines. And this guy, when I say that this guy was basically obliterated off the planet by Blizzard, Activision Blizzard did this. they banned him from all future tournaments. They banned the casters that were casting that tournament that he was interviewed at, so they could no longer cast anymore. And then they basically removed all reference of this dude from everything that had happened prior. It's just like he was just like, it's like he didn't exist anymore, And
That's crazy.
this was literally just for saying free Hong Kong. Like, and so
Yeah.
this is the topic for me, is that not specifically Tencent, but they are the ones Montreal and I are more concerned about in the gaming space. But in general, like, how do you guys feel about Chinese influence coming into our entertainment? And I don't necessarily want to say the word censoring, but like kind of censoring things in order to push forward the Chinese Communist Party's worldview on the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And somehow we're all just okay with this. Like, it just feels like everybody's complicit. Like, oh, the money's flowing, so it's fine. We don't need to talk about it. It's all good. When China comes in and is like, hey, here's $1 billion for your company that's worth 500 million. You're just like, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll take that billion. Yeah, absolutely, dude. This is what happens to me when we, as a capitalist society, uh, everything revolves around money. We are getting manipulated by China, in
Yeah.
my opinion. But how do you guys feel about this?
I agree with that. That is why, in the case of John Cena, that's why that happened. I think that they are such a big market. I actually go back to when we had the economic crash in the late 2000s, and General Motors is picking up the pieces and all that, and they had
Mm-hmm.
Pontiac, which is huge in America, and then they had Buick, which is huge in China, and that's why there's still Buick and there's not Pontiac anymore. Um, and you know what? I will say that makes a little bit more sense. I guess you could say than it does from an entertainment standpoint, but there's such a market for that. I think there was with the last Mission Impossible, there was uh, a good portion of stuff that they had to take out of the movie for it to even air in China. Um, so yeah, it's been going on for a while. It definitely bothers me. I know that really the market would speak for itself here in America if if somebody didn't like something. or if like a large group of people didn't like something that was said in the movie, the market would speak for itself. Whereas with China, it's just not even going to get
Mm-hmm.
shown. If so, that's my thought. I mean, Denson, if the Communist Party, what do you think? Like it, you know? Um,
Mm. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm.
yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think a lot of I think a lot of the lawmakers are in the pockets of China. That's just conspiracy theory. But
Probably through proxies they are.
yeah.
yeah,
I would agree
yeah.
with that. Yeah,
There's such a big entity that, um, yeah, like you said, I don't have a problem with capitalism, but this is the major flaw of capitalism. We can easily be bought out and sell our country, and I think that's what we're doing. I mean, you see it all on TikTok. Uh, there are influencers that can't even say certain things without being deleted off TikTok, or whatever.
TikTok. Yeah,
Um,
I know.
so I mean, I know if you say like, I know one thing that was getting your channels like deleted was like, Black Lives Matter or something of that nature, or any kind of uh anything related to that. You got your channel deleted because China obviously controls TikTok. And then another thing is, why I don't have TikTok on my phone, is because TikTok can literally read your phone. Like, it was a big court case about should TikTok still be allowed on your phone. I remember when Trump was still in office, actually, that was his major like contributor, like, to
Mm. He
why
tried to
we
ban it.
go. Yeah, he tried to ban it,
Yeah,
and I
Mm.
was actually kind of for it. I'm like, yeah, there's somebody who's actually kind of standing up to it, even though it's like a, I don't know what the word is, but it's like a glass cannon, but
Mm.
someone's bringing attention to what needs to be
Well,
going on.
yeah, say what you want about
sure.
Trump. That is one thing that he legitimately was actually like very clearly against China. And it's weird that we just don't seem to care as a society. Like there's not a lot of coverage of this, in my opinion, that I see, especially in gaming spaces, which is odd given how much influence Tencent now has within gaming.
Yeah,
But it's just, even generally though, I don't feel like China's, like, their movement is covered in mainstream media that much. And
not
it's
that much.
because, to be honest, like they're like, we are probably in a cold war with them. It's just not in the ways we were with like Soviet Russia. It's more like
Yeah,
entertainment focused, because they are really making moves in entertainment. Like they have huge influence within entertainment. And Dennison, you were kind of getting at this a little bit, is that the further their tendrils, the deeper their tendrils go into entertainment, the more influence they have, meaning that they can influence what that media says. And to be
Mm,
honest, people are very influenced by media, television shows, movies, even the video games they play. The messages that those things send oftentimes have influence over the way people think. And
yeah,
honestly, like right now, it's not a concern, I guess, but the longer we let this go on, the harder it's going to be to get them out. Almost impossible. It
Oh,
probably almost is, because Tencent specifically. It's funny because I think they own TikTok, right? And
Yeah, they
um
do. Yeah.
and Trump was trying to get all of their holdings banned, not just TikTok. That conversation was being had, but it was such a ridiculous notion because they own way too much stuff. Like they have too much. It would like crater industries potentially to do that. So it was
oh
just
yeah,
it's just shot down. Because think about it,
yeah.
like we talked about it on our podcast. Like Riot is 100% owned by Tencent, and if they were suddenly banned in the United States, like that would have a absolutely monumental impact on the video game industry all of a sudden, because there's millions and millions and millions of gamers that can't play the game on Twitch anymore, can't play the game period. They're going to go to other games, and that's going to have a huge economic impact on the industry.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
it's just like, how do we deal with this though, as I mean as individuals, but even as a country? Like what do you guys think we can do?
Well, so this thing for me, I mean, it's very layered. Dennis and I have talked about some of this stuff to a certain extent, and I know we talked about, for me, my opinion with the TikTok thing in general is, I get where the concern is coming from there, but like we're also spied on through our own social media apps here in America,
Mhm.
and we know the people doing that just as well as we know the people over in China. You know what I'm saying? So, um, complete anonymity there, and that we don't really know where that information is going or what it's being used for. I still get the concern when it's not American interests, of course. But I will say too, you mentioned the Cold War, and I would say straight up beyond just entertainment. And it's a really interesting take that you're saying there, with them using entertainment to convey certain messages or withhold certain messages. But straight up, and I will say too, I want to throw this out there as a journalist. I believe the reason there's not so much media coverage on China is because of two things. One is they control their image entirely. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
completely.
Oh,
Like
100%. Yep.
for the most populated country in the entire world, it's incredible how little we see of them. You know, and
Well, and how little they
not only
see of
that,
us as well.
yeah, yeah. But then the other thing is the I and this ties into the Cold War thing. It's a cyber warfare. I mean, we've known that they've hacked the Pentagon. We've known that they've
Mm-hmm.
hacked multiple massive entities, and yet we don't do anything that we know of in retaliation. And the reason that doesn't get a lot of coverage is because uh cyber warfare is not sexy. What are the visuals of that? It's a guy on a keyboard, essentially, right? That's the best it gets. That's the best
Mm-hmm.
it gets. Binary code. but
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is, wars are fueled and ended by images, and there's not an image for this, and so it continues to perpetuate, it continues to go on. What can be done about it? I mean, it'd have to be high level things, but it would have to be. Here's the thing. I know we mentioned Donald Trump, but like in my mind, there has to be. Okay, so I'm getting off on a tangent here, but like I was watching this thing on the Olympics the other day where they were talking about what baseball's meant to Tokyo, and it was narrated by Tom Selleck. And I love that dude, so I was like, I'm gonna watch this. The They interjected how baseball has been there at key moments of America's history, and it showed the moment that George Bush threw the first pitch at the Yankees game, which was the first game in October following the September 11th attacks. And to me, that is what creates a sense of nationalism. That is what nationalism is all about. Not how it was in the previous administration, where it's we're going to shut off the entire world because that creates nationalism. That's not how that works. It's you have to create a sense of pride and excitement. So, but with that in mind, I think that's kind of what we have to do as a society is be more reliant on what America can offer and not so reliant on what other
Mm,
countries can offer. I think there have been steps that have been taken that, but we are so indebted to China and
mm,
we rely on them so much for manufacturing in our economy, and
mm-hmm,
really it's a global economy nowadays, and that's what you were saying too, Justin, is with the mighty dollar, really it rules everything, and so, or the yen in this case, and
mm,
that really is the controlling factor, and the only way that this ends is if we become self-reliant rather than entrenched in a global economy. And to be honest, I just don't see that happening. I really
Mm.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, we would have to be the isolationists that we were post or pre World War II. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't know that, but we were super isolated from like the rest of the world. We barely got into World War One, and then World War II, we got middle in, but we were a super isolated country. All the way up until like the 50s and 60s, all the way up into the late 50s, early 60s. That's actually when like the Cold War was happening and stuff like that. Well, actually, from the end of World War II all the way to like the 90s, the Cold War was going on actually. But we were always fighting the communists. The commies are coming. That was the whole spill, right? um but the thing that's interesting now, what I think a lot of people, even us, aren't really talking about as far as China, um and capitalism and communism, is a lot of Americans are communist or self-proclaimed communist or whatever. And I don't have a problem with that. I just don't think, I think it's a real slippery slope that we don't know what the forces we're dealing with by calling this, because
mm,
Mm.
a lot of people on the left call themselves communists, and then a lot of people on the right call other things like social care and healthcare communism or
mm,
socialism. So we don't understand the true definition of it, and then you interject China in there with social media, and it's just like they know how to play it. Well, at first it
mm,
was Russia, but now we know that it's tentacles is actually like China and everything of that nature.
Mm.
So they're also not playing a entertainment warfare on us or a cyber warfare. They're injected into our culture now. They understand our culture because we are so willing to share everything on the internet. Like I'll give you an example, not to be like super like pro black or whatever, but I'll just give you an example, right? There are like various arguments that happen on quote unquote black Twitter. One of the most genuine arguments that are not genuine, one of the most argumented things that are argued are, you know, um, black men versus black women, who loves who more, who hates who more, or whatever, right? Well, come to find out that a lot of people that start those conversations are fake accounts that are
Yep.
like from China and Russia.
yeah,
They
man.
pose as like
Mm-hmm.
like black women or black men, and they
Oh,
interject those conversations out there, and then we eat it up. So it's like it's I don't know how we can combat it, to be honest with you, because a lot of people, they understand what's going on, but they don't want to do anything about it. And then our leadership, like someone else mentioned, is they're very old and they don't understand what kind of warfare is going on. It would have to be a thing where, unfortunately, it'll probably be too late, but old leadership dies out and we get new leaders in there that understands our culture and how war is being fought. Because war, I think there is a war going on right now. Like you said, like John said, it's a cyber warfare. It's not, but it's not sexy. There's not boots on the ground. There's not soldiers shooting airplanes or drones out the sky. It's not Afghanistan 2001 again or 2004. It's Reddit. That's the war ground.
yeah.
It's
Right.
It's the
4chan.
battleground. Don't tell them that,
Yeah,
man. Dude, don't
yeah,
tell them that. They
yeah.
don't need to
It's
they don't need
yeah.
that.
Four
Now,
4chan is the battleground now, and like,
Uh,
how do you market that? You can't say like, "Hey guys, well, there was a post today, and we found 5 hackers on 4chan," and people are like, "Okay, cool. I'm still going to be
yeah.
on my phone scrolling."
But isn't
So
that isn't that so concerning though, man? That they are, yeah, because it's a great point you bring up about them. Like they literally make fake accounts just to like rile people up,
yep.
And
Yeah.
it's like they're not doing that for no reason, they are
Mm-hmm.
trying to do, and to be honest, like, man, I don't like, I mean, there's no proof to attribute this to them, but society has definitely shifted in the way we talk to each other and the way we interact, in the United States specifically, over the last decade plus, and
Mhm.
Yeah.
it's really concerning to me that we can't even have basic conversations on social media at this point without it devolving into some kind of fighting match where it's, tribalism comes in, or you start calling people racist when it's irrelevant. They're not even talking about race, and somehow people are racist all of a sudden. It's like, and that they could be influencing that behind the scenes by doing all these things we're talking about, influencing media, making fake accounts, like trying to start conversations about things that people glob onto, and then they just walk away and let the bombs blow up,
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's China's big advantage, in my opinion.
Hmm.
I consider our advantage as well, as far as our side, but it is one of our biggest weaknesses. Is we're a melting pot. I love that we can, talk to different cultures, and I can go down the street and talk to like talk to a Korean dude, then go up the street and talk to like a Jamaican dude or something, and I get two totally different perspectives on things.
Yep.
Whereas in China, that's not really the case. Like, I don't know the percentages, but I'm pretty sure like 99% of them are just Chinese, right? And it's like there is no other ethnicities there, and the ones that are there, like I remember, there are Chinese Muslims out there.
The
Those they're
Uyghurs.
like, yeah, they're like pushed to like a camp, right? And we
Well,
just
they're
never
they're
hear
in
about them again.
concentration camps, dude. Like straight
Yeah,
up,
Yeah.
literally,
and we
they're
just
being re-educated to believe Chinese propaganda, essentially.
yeah, so they know how to manipulate that, whereas I think we don't know how to manipulate that. Not to say that we should, but it's just like they know how to interject themselves within certain things in certain conversations to get the conversation going. I think the reason why the election was so stressful, because I would say 30% of it was because just random bot accounts would start up random arguments
Yeah.
between the left and the right and all this other stuff like that. Um, where we just didn't have any kind of political unity. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
just a random thing. I don't know how we can combat it. To be honest with you, get back to your original question. I honestly don't know what we can do.
Well,
yeah. The,
or
sorry, Dennis. I just wanted to interject
yeah, no,
this
go
real
ahead.
quick. I mean, like the actual solution in my mind is really dramatic stuff, and that is
Mm.
isolation, like you're talking about, and just
Hmm.
dismantling social media entirely because there is no tangible metric.
Please.
There, yeah, I would not be against it either, even though it would kill this
Hmm.
podcast. But
Yeah.
there is no tangible metric for how it's impacted our culture. But I definitely agree with you. But it's undoubtedly and provenly so impacted our elections, and it's
Mm-hmm.
impacted even the fact that not even 50% of America is vaccinated right now. You know,
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
have
Exactly.
shown that. They have shown that, and that is a huge problem. That is as big of an attack as an EMP. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like convincing people to willingly put themselves at risk,
Yes.
Yeah.
like
Yes.
with with misinformation. It's like what, the idea that people would live through a pandemic and then you give them a vaccine that has a like 95% success rate at blocking this virus, and people are literally going to be like, nah, I'm good, dude.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
good.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm good, bro. I don't
It's
want it.
mind blowing.
It's my choice. I
Yes.
don't want it. It's like,
Yes.
oh, huh? Like,
And then, and, then-
huh?
and, then, and then you can't force people to get it because then you're a tyrant.
Well,
So it's
right.
like,
You're a
Yeah.
dictatorship at that point, which
Well,
is the thing is we're playing on an uneven battleground, right? They can do whatever they want because they're the Chinese Communist Party. Like there are no rules they won't break. There are no moral boundaries they will not go over. Whereas
Yes.
us, we have to play by a code of honor that we have, which I'm not saying we shouldn't, but point being is that we do need to defend ourselves though in
yeah.
some way, and it feels like it's not happening, in any
Well,
yeah.
way.
Well, going on your point, though, actually, and I think this is also something that I've started to kind of understand and kind of consider is that seeing that, right? Us Americans being able to see a whole country be able to essentially unite, quote unquote. It's more along the lines of forcing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But them being able to do certain things that we know our country couldn't do because we have to vote on things, we have to have things work. I think that also influences us because I have heard on multiple occasions from several different people where people are like, well, sometimes I just wish we just didn't have to worry about this voting stuff. We just did stuff, you know? And I feel like that's also another thing that gets interjected into our culture that we don't even notice, right? Because we see certain things being able to be done quicker or easier or whatever like that
Yeah.
in other communist countries that it's not good, but we're like, well, you know, to save other people, this is the best way to do it, right? And it's like that's
Yeah.
not the right way to do it. And then I also thought of this too is that I think China isn't just targeting us. I think they're using us, at least, especially when it comes to media, as a way to influence uh, global audience, right? Because that's the thing, right? We already
Yeah.
know that American media is, and I don't want to. I'm not saying this as like, oh yeah, America's the best, but American media is is a bigger media source for around the world, right? So
Yeah.
if China already has their tendrils in a lot of our media and they're able to censor it how we want and they're able to change it up how we want or how they want, I should really say, then they are effectively not just influencing us, but they are influencing the rest of the world
Yep.
at the same
Absolutely.
time. So you get multiple layers here. And I feel like, to be honest, I think it's interesting to see China and how far they've grown from years before, right? Going from a super closed off country to now being a really open, I should say, force. I kind of feel like they've planned a lot of this to work perfectly for them
Mm-hmm.
in this
Yeah.
stage is because they're able to influence so many things. They open up now. Hey, guess what? We can do goods. We can create goods. We can produce
Well, it
things
started with
cheaper.
manufacturing, yeah. Like
Exactly.
what? Because yeah, that our whole lives, right? Our whole think
Yep.
about it, like all of us, our whole lives, it's all made in China is on everything, like almost
Mm-hmm.
everything you buy,
Yep.
and it's always been that way. It's never been a not a thing in our lives, and that's where it began. It's like they
Mm-hmm.
started there because at that point there's a reliance on the country. Like like we literally need China to do anything, like to get any good we want, at any
Mm-hmm.
given time. It's like it starts there, and then then the money flows in, and then all of a sudden they can start doing other things. They start buying up companies and buying real estate and doing all this stuff that and yeah, you're right, Dennison.
Yeah.
It feels really sinister, like it has been planned out, and it's like playing out perfectly in their favor.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, there's
Yeah.
also talks of. Sorry, just one last thing. But there's also
No, go
talks.
ahead, dude.
I saw like an article that China is also developing their own digital currency, and a lot of economists are a little bit scared of it because they feel that the power that digital currency could have has a possibility of overthrowing the the value of the US dollar because we
How's
all
that?
know that the US dollar actually has a huge impact on the world's economy. And
Yeah.
I forgot what it's specifically called, but it's something that they're
So
essentially
you're saying it could
developing.
overvalue that?
Yes.
Yeah.
I got you. Okay. Okay.
Which, I think it's weird, right? Because when you think about it, it kind of sounds like it's like a plot from like a James Bond film, like oh, first start with the media, and then I'll start with blah blah blah, and but it in some ways it kind of feels something similar to that because it's like things start to line up properly, right? Um,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like we did a lot of stuff to ourselves. I mean, it started in the 70s or early 60s, maybe. No, late 60s, early 70s. When I don't know if you like, I remember my father telling me like a lot of people lost their jobs, manufacturing jobs. They just started randomly getting outsourced, like random plastic factories. Like Detroit was like really impacted by that because we had a whole bunch of manufacturing jobs, not just for cars, but plastic, steel,
Mm-hmm.
coal, you name it. And then those first, they started going to Mexico, and then it started going to like other countries. And then like, I mean, obviously China was one of the big proprietors of that, because the labor was just so cheap. And it's like, do we blame ourselves for that, or do we say China was just sinister? Like, or was it just China being like, hey, like it kind of fell in our lap, and now 15 years, 20 years, 30 years later, wow, this really paid off for us. You
Well,
know?
Yeah.
I think it's to me ultimately it falls back on our capitalist tendencies. Like money is it, and the reason those things got outsourced is you said it. They're cheaper. It's cheaper. Like board games is the one of the funniest industries because they are powered by China. Like you go on Kickstarter and there's all these board game Kickstarters, and I will guarantee you 95% of them, probably close to 100%, are all manufacturing their game in China. Every single one of them. Why? Because it's the cheapest way. Otherwise, they'd have to charge like twice as much for their game because making it in the United States is extremely expensive. Like, so that element to it is, and this is, I agree with you, John, that major change has to happen to do anything about this, and it starts with the way our economy works and the way we are just being capitalists, being a purely capitalist society where we inject no ethics or morals whatsoever into the way we do business is that's the problem. When money is it, that's the only thing you care about. You don't care who it is. You will make whatever deal you need to make with the devil or whoever, like whatever demon it is, or horrible entity or evil entity. It doesn't matter. No thing is too far as long as the money is flowing. That mentality is just it's led down a dark path, and we're not like
Yeah.
we're not at the end of the path yet, but I feel like we're heading there. And I don't it's really alarming to me that like it's not more widely discussed, so
I agree. I agree.
yeah.
I think it's something that we've kind of settled into. We've come to a point where we're like, well, this is normal. I kind of feel like that settling and that complacency shows it shows up in a lot of what we do. Like I think back a lot to like Edward Snowden with the NSA, and we found out that our own country is spying on us. The worst kept secret, by the way, but it was like confirmed, and we were mad about it for like 6 months, and then decided not to be mad about it anymore. And so I see a lot of that in our society. And I think that might be the biggest issue with tackling it. One thing I want to know. So obviously, as we've said, you guys are the hosts of the Players Take, which is a video game centric podcast and the industry centric podcast. What is your biggest concern with all of the things that we've talked about? And then China owning this, because actually I want to make this point too. China, like really what you need to know about them, even if you don't know this other stuff, is like they're not afraid to throw hands for Hong Kong, right? They're not afraid to throw hands for the South China Sea, who has the rights to that and where, um, which has been going on forever. And then, um, what was it? Their president, Xi Jinping, right? He was uh, I, he was they had pretty close to a democratic society, as close as they've ever been, where this guy'd run for reelection, and then finally they said this next reelection, if you vote him in, will be for the rest of his life. um and everyone voted except one person for it. Everybody except one. And I don't know what happened to that one dude. He's probably he's probably in the bottom of the South China Sea, actually.
Mm-hmm.
um
Yeah.
but this is like their mentality that they have going into it. So with all and how they run their country, how they are obviously influencing others. So with all that said, this was brought up over their stake in Tencent, this video game company and entertainment company. What's your biggest concern with that? Why, specifically to the gaming industry?
Yeah, that's a good question. Now, yeah, I mean, Montreal and I discuss this a lot on the podcast. We every time Tencent acquires a new company, we pretty much talk about it. And
Yeah.
because we believe it's an important topic, and no one else, very few other people are talking about it, podcasts or otherwise. And within the gaming space, I mean, we see it. My concern is what happened to Guilty Gear Strive or that Call of Duty trailer, that they're going to start censoring game content and reducing the things that we can discuss or see or experience within a game because they don't like it. And what happens when all of a sudden arbitrarily they decide they don't like American iconography in a game? You know, they don't want that in a game. You know, and all of a sudden Chinese people from the CCP need to be the main character. You know, they can do that. They own these companies. They can make that decision whenever they want. Like that's what my concern is that yeah, right now it's benign. They're not doing anything. They're like, yeah, Tencent's like, yeah, oh yeah, you guys keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. But what happens when that changes? All of a sudden, it's like, because to me, at some point, that's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for that day when all of a sudden this all flips and all these companies that they own are totally thrown on their heads and they're having to do all they start doing all this weird wild shit that is like way in China's favor, like propaganda, all sorts of stuff like this. That's kind of what I'm waiting for. And I don't know I don't think it's going to be soon. It could be, honestly, it could be when I'm dead. Like it could be that long. Like they're playing the long game. Like China's always they've been doing this for 50 years, right? Like, so it might not be something that we even see, but I think the thing is with it is that it could happen at any time. Like when you own something, you own it. You can tell people what to do. Like you can say, make this, only put Chinese flags in it. You don't put it, the Americans are the bad guys. Like you can do that. And sure, that might be an interesting video game, maybe, but it's propaganda though. Like it is a propagandist thing. Like if you're gonna put like China on like this pedestal, and it sounds ridiculous. I'm being extreme with my example, but like I'm trying to illustrate a point here is that they can do whatever they want. They can do this slowly, where they slowly kind of change perception of China. They start putting in negative U.S. iconography or negative U.S. themes, things that make the U.S. look bad. They don't even mention China, you know, but they can start doing things like that. Like they could do that at any time, you know, and frankly, like they could pass it off. They could have their company pass it off like, oh yeah, we really wanted to explore this period of American history, you know, and it makes the U.S. look really bad. You know, it's something that, but it's like, that's kind of what that's the whole point of this conversation is influence, right? They're trying to influence perceptions, and they're doing this from multiple different angles, social media, entertainment, what have you, you know, and that ultimately to me is, it's like, I love video games. I do not feel comfortable with a Chinese entity having this much influence in a medium I love, because I do not want their influence to all of a sudden ruin an industry for me that I've always been a part of and I want to continue to be a part of.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Montrell? What are your thoughts?
It's just really weird. I think I agree for the most part what Justin said. I don't know what their end game with with the video game industry is, just to probably fuel money for whatever other interests they are. There are going to be about, but they are going to start censoring stuff. I mean, they already did. They already influenced the way certain media is made. Taskmaster from Black Widow. If you know who Taskmaster is, his face or his mask really is a skull, kind of skull like mask, and and the reason why it's not like that in the movies is because skulls are like taboo. From what I've read, I think are taboo in like Chinese culture. So they didn't want to offend the Chinese audience. So that's why it's like more of a helmet. Like it just looked really Fortnite-ish and Power Ranger-ish for Taskmaster.
Wow.
And Black Widow.
So this is in the most recent, Black Widow. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, this isn't.
Wow.
So I feel like that's going to be on a greater scale in video games. I'm actually surprised that Battlefield 4 is actually still in the market, because in that game you literally blow up, or you're fighting in Shanghai and parts of it get blown up and you're fighting the Chinese army and stuff like that. So I'm actually surprised that game is still live and available. But if they get hold of the culture and they get a really strong foothold, they can tell EA, hey, take that off your servers. We don't want that game being played
They have no
anymore.
ownership stake in EA yet.
Yeah.
When that happens, all of a sudden that game might change.
yeah, that game might change, or it might just be taken off servers completely. So if you own Battlefield 4, you can't play it anymore except for offline. So certain things like that can happen. That, and like Justin said, can influence creator content and everything of that nature. You can't be as creative as you want to. I mean, they may make America the bad guys, which I don't really care, but they can also interject in certain things where they can't. We can't talk about I think the 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 Tank Man, right? That was in 1995. I think that happened where he stood against this one
Yeah.
tank.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't talk
2005.
about that anymore, or whatever the case may be. That can't be in any kind of video game or anything of that nature. And then that can also, like, it can't just stop in video games. It can go into all types of American culture. I mean, Google can start censoring searches and stuff like that. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just, if they get a hold of Google, you know what I'm saying? So it's just really scary. I just don't. I think they're just using video games as a money laundering front to fuel
Mm,
other things that they're doing.
mhm.
Um, and that's my biggest concern. Like, what are they using 220 or
220
200,000?
billion.
Yeah, $220 billion for, like, because that's going to the Chinese government, even though that's a company.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure a large percentage of that is going to the Chinese government.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, a
Actually,
large percentage of it is.
I think one of the things is like one of the rules. Like, if you want to have a corporation on Chinese soil, you have to give a certain percentage of your revenue to the Chinese government. Like, not just taxes. It's like they
Mhm.
have a stake in your business.
Okay.
I think I remember reading
Yeah.
something like that where they were trying to get businesses to come to China, but that was also one of the caveats.
Yeah. So I don't know. At the end of the day, I just feel like our leadership is very aware but unaware of what's going on, or maybe they are aware and they're just trying to keep it
They
hush
don't
hush and they don't
comprehend
want.
it.
Yeah.
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 And it's it's too many war fronts to fight on. Um,
Oh yeah. Well, it's attacked by overwhelm. I feel like that's the whole thing. Is there's even if you cut out the other countries that the U.S. is dealing with, this is a lot to take in just from China. Um, I will say this: I'm going to be devil's advocate on something because it was popping in my head when we were talking about the potential propaganda of Chinese influenced media, in this case, gaming. I actually remember thinking about this as far back as when I was playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Okay. And I was thinking to myself, why is it that we're still making Russians the bad guy? Right now, like things
mhm.
have happened since then that have kind of validated that decision. But um, specifically at that time when I was still in high school, I was like, the Cold War has been over for a while, and they're still the guys that we're fighting on these video games. And I think about that a lot. I think about it when we villainize um, Vladimir Putin, right? And those type of things. I'm not trying to make a case for Vladimir Putin, by the way. I am just saying, what are the chances that we are doing the same thing with our own media, with our own culture? You see it in
Mhm.
movies
Mhm.
and video games all the time. The bad guy is 90% of the time Russian, you know?
Oh yeah, I
And
100% agree
Or
with
it's a
that. Yeah.
terrorist. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
like a Muslim terrorist of some sort, Muslim terrorist organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah. So
it's
go
rarely,
ahead, go ahead.
it's rarely China,
Mm-hmm.
if
Yes,
ever.
yes, yes, and that only validates the argument even more. Absolutely, for you and for what we're talking about today. Um, so yeah, but it's usually Russia, and I can't fathom that, especially when you see like people from those Eastern European countries playing on online multiplayer, and you're like,
Mm,
shouldn't you hate this? Shouldn't
right.
you hate
Yeah.
this game? Um, but yeah, so really, is there any level of hypocrisy? Maybe that's not the right phrase to use, but some sort of you know does need to look inward at what we perpetuate here in America,
Hmm.
as we bring that concern up with China expanding their influence time and time again, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I agree with you. I do for sure. Is that I don't know if it's willing or even actively thought about it. These game companies, like who they choose their villain to be, oftentimes, but it's an interesting discussion because yeah, I mean it perpetuates this idea that like the Russians are the evil guys, like or Muslim people are the evil or evil as well. It's like and yeah, that statement is like painting with a broad brush, but when like 90% of your video games that are based in the real world, those are your enemies that you're killing, literally shooting, with weapons or attacking in some way. You know, I like I don't want to give any credence to the idea that like video games cause violence, but there is a some conscious thought there that could definitely like because I
Yeah,
mean if I'm gonna make the argument that like China's spreading propaganda that influences people, it's the same in the other way too, and
yeah,
so
Yeah.
I do think that has an impact for sure. And I often think I will say like I'm critical of gaming in this way is that like I think gaming is stagnant in the sense that the goal off like in 95% of games is to kill something. Like you are fighting something. It's just like
Yeah.
there's very few games where the goal isn't somehow fighting or killing or something along those lines. And that is a real flaw the industry has. And ultimately when that is your goal, you need to fight. You need something to fight. It can't just be some random entity. It's like it's gotta be something rooted in reality. So we pick Russia. It's like generic
Right.
Russian evil people. It's like but yeah, so I
Yeah.
think it definitely is relevant.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that. That's Chinese are rarely mentioned in the games, but I can think of like two games that are kind of big
Mhm.
that China is the main enemy, and one of them is Fallout.
Oh
China is
yeah.
the main.
Oh, true. That's a good one. Yeah, it's a good pull. Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
yeah, in Fallout, the lore is that so Fallout takes place in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, and the lore there is that we got into a nuclear war with China in the 50s,
Hmm.
and we lost.
Oh wow.
And
Wow.
I don't think we know if China also got destroyed because they were shooting bombs at each other, but like basically the world got locked in the 50s. That's why the iconography in that game is very heavily 50s based for the most part.
yeah,
But so yeah, that is interesting. But they're not the active villain, Montreal. It's just within the lore. It's like they're not.
yeah.
You don't
It's
fight them specifically.
Yeah, and then there's another game that I played that was big at the time, but not big now. Was a Homefront, and
Mm.
that game,
Mm-hmm.
when you the start of that game, the Chinese just randomly attacked you. We didn't have any inkling of what's going on. They attacked the West Coast, and then they just kind of spread it from there, and we couldn't really keep up with them. And I thought at the time, like, this would never happen. Like, what? Like,
Right.
we would know. But
Wait,
now,
hold on. Wasn't that North Korea?
I thought it was China.
No, they
Oh,
changed it. I
No,
think it was
you're right.
originally supposed. It was
It
supposed
was
to be.
supposed to be
It was
China.
it was
supposed to be
supposed
China,
to
and
be
they
China.
changed it. So this
Oh,
you're
It's North
furthering my
Korea.
point, dude.
Yeah,
You're
you're right.
furthering
I
my
Wow.
forgot
point
about
right
that.
now. Is that yeah? It was supposed
Wow.
to be China, and then they in the middle of development they changed it to North Korea.
that's
That's crazy.
insane. Okay,
Yeah.
because I do
Yeah.
remember the
Great
trailer.
example though.
Yes.
Yeah, I do remember the trailer being China, and yeah, you're right. It is North Korea. That's crazy.
Because
Yeah.
this was made by THQ, and I don't know if they were owned by a Chinese company at the time, but they changed it. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well, I
That
think
does make it hard to
also.
believe. North Korea just ransacking the U.S.
well,
like
that was like unfortunately they kind of ruined the game by making that change because it was completely
Yeah.
unrealistic. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
like actual historians like were like examining the game and were like, yeah, it would take absolutely ridiculous things happening in sequence with one another for the North Korea to ever do this. So
Yeah. For
yeah.
Yeah,
sure. For
because
sure.
I think they. Yeah, I think in the game South or North Korea had some sort of satellite that blacked out like some of the
Mhm.
world or whatever like that, and that helped them invade and stuff like that. And it's like North Korea doesn't have the technology to do that. But no, I mean, I think even Homefront 2 was technically along those same lines. I think they were going to do China again, but then they changed back to North Korea. Because
Yeah,
I think I
so
remember hearing that.
yeah. So
Yeah.
But I don't know. China in America. It's gonna be one for history books. I don't know what's gonna be said 50 years from now. To be honest with you, I think it's gonna be another Cold War. It's gonna be a cyber Cold War, but it's gonna be like a chapter long because it's like you said, John. It's not spicy at all.
Yeah, it's not. And really, what I meant when I said the thing about images start wars, they end wars. I think about the images of the twin towers and people, firefighters carrying people out of the rubble and that kind of stuff. That's really what fueled public desire to want to start that war. Um, People raising the flag, um, in Normandy. That
Mm,
photo made us feel a sense of accomplishment, which eventually led to the ending of the war. Of course, after Hitler was killed and whatnot. Um, and there are several others too, but that just is not a thing. If there's not boots on the ground, you can't. I mean, unless you want to screenshot some sick coding that you did to,
Or just like put up the Matrix symbol iconography, you know.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And so yeah, this is going to be one, like you said, for the ages. Who knows? I mean, the visual thing is the war on terrorism, and that is something that could conceivably go on forever too, because there's always going to be terrorists. It's just how it is. And um but you're never going to have the visuals with this. So both of these things, cyber warfare and the war on terror, could literally go on forever. And one thing I was wondering about, actually not too long ago, was with the push for cryptocurrency. All of a sudden, it seems like our government is becoming more and more open to the idea of, and I don't, because the SEC is looking for ways to regulate crypto now, and that would therefore be an acceptance of crypto. And the reason I bring up this is because you mentioned, the digital currency that Russia was trying to create and fuel earlier, Denison,
Or
and
China.
or oh, sorry, yes, China. Thank you. When I say Russia, um, but bring it. Yeah, you brought that up
Propaganda.
earlier. Yeah, it's already, yeah, it's in my headphones. I
They
didn't even
got you,
notice.
man. They got you, John. It's
I didn't
okay.
even
Russia's
catch it.
not always the bad guy, man.
I know, I know it's a subconscious manipulation, but I didn't even, yeah, I didn't think about this at the time, but as I'm putting it all together, is there potentially, do you think, a reason for that, so that we could have our own government accepted crypto that could survive the impact that would be had on the dollar by a digital currency from China? You know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I realize it's a little off topic from what we're talking about, but um, crossed my mind a little bit, and it is kind of funny the 180 that we've done on crypto as a society, which is partly fueled by it just exploding as well. But yeah, I think we had a good discussion on all this. Denson, did you have
Mm-hmm.
any other thoughts, man?
Uh, no, no. I think, to be honest, I think it's a lot of. We had really, huge, great conversation, stuff like that. But at the same time, it's one of those things that I think it's a story that's going to continue to unfold, and it's going to be something that we have to kind of keep an eye out on. I know I will, but
Yeah, for sure.
it's
What about either of you guys? You got anything else you want to
nope. I'm
I'm good.
add?
okay.
Thank you for
All
having
right.
us
Well,
on.
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you guys for being on, man. We always have these really long form conversations with you guys, and I love it every time. We get really deep on stuff, and it's really, mind thought provoking for me, especially. I really enjoy it. So thank you guys for coming on.
Mm-hmm.
We always look
Mm-hmm.
forward to it. We'll do it again. I am certain of it. You can keep racking up that tally of of the most recurring
Yeah, we,
guests
we
on
need
the
to keep
history of
adding
Disney.
like ticks to my trophy or our trophy, I
Absolutely,
guess.
Exactly.
absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Plus, you guys are
yeah,
always
no
a
doubt.
joy. You know, I I feel like it's. I mean, it's always a joy to listen to you guys' podcast, but it's always an amazing joy to have you guys on as well. So, yeah.
Absolutely, Absolutely. So, all right, before we sign off, one more time, if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review. Let us know what your thoughts are and leave that rating. It'll help the podcast continue to grow and help us know what we're doing well and maybe even what we could work on.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully more on the what we're doing well side.
Well,
But what you got, man? Go ahead.
well, actually, I also wanted to say, of course, please leave us rating, like, review, subscribe, but also don't forget to email us at our email, which is theketchupcast@gmail.com. That's theketchupcast@gmail.com. It's a great way for you guys to get in touch with us. We love hearing you guys' questions, and it's also an amazing way for us to talk about topics such as the ones that we talked about now or on this episode, as well as just kind of being able to get in touch with us. And we love hearing from you guys. But I also did want to also plug the Players Take podcast. I want you guys to be able to go ahead and talk about your amazing podcast and tell our listeners where they can find you.
Yeah, so I mean, if you like that 10 set discussion, Montreal and I, we like to dive deep on topics every week. We also talk about, just more casual, what games we're playing and games we're looking forward to kind of thing as well. So we got you covered on the video game industry. But yeah, we are the Players Take podcast that is plural possessive players. And you can find us at the Players Take on Twitter. And I'm at Thundernut01. Montreal's at iTrap for the Hokage, number 4, not the word.
Yeah.
And so come check us out if you want to talk games.
Yeah, Denison, thank you for keeping me in line, bro.
Yeah.
Keeping me in line with making sure we got that plug.
That's a
in.
good
And all of
co-host right
that-
there, man.
Yeah, that's why we're a partnership for sure. That will be all linked in the description of this episode. All of that was just mentioned, and everything else as well. Our website. Dennis and I are rocking our good clean merch right now on the live stream.
Man, Montreal, we got to get on this, bro.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Dang, man. Look
Yeah,
at that.
get
That
you
looks
some good
nice.
clean- I know. I'm kind of jealous of Denison's. I'm not gonna lie, but so there's a lot to check out, and we have a whole lot more coming up in the next couple of weeks that we're really excited about. But thank you guys so much for listening and watching this week. Thank you, Justin and Montreal, for coming on. Really enjoyed it. And again, thank you so much for listening. We'll catch up with you next week. Boom.
All right, guys. I have to go. I
There we go.
apologize.
Oh, you're
No
good, bro.
worries. It's all good. You are good.
All right.